Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Hare and Forbes Machinery House, Pace Farm, Hero Hoists, and Martin's Panel Masters. There are quite a few classic vehicle museums around the United States of America. But this one here, near Los Angeles, is home to the largest collection of Concours d'Elegance winners in the world. Come on, let's go take a closer look. Introducing the Nethercutt Car Collection and Museum on both sides of the road. J.B. Nethercutt was the wealthy owner of Merle Norman Cosmetics, and now this is all supported by their company trust. His impressive and surprisingly elegant museum is encased in a windowless building approximately a 45-minute drive north of LA when there's no traffic, and about 3 hours drive when there is, but it's worth it. This is the type of museum where there is something for everyone. The first VW Beetle imported to the US in 1946, and the world's second largest Wurlitzer theatre organ. This jaw-dropping display features rare collectibles ranging from mechanical musical instruments and antique furniture to the true heart of why I brought you here. Over 250 American and European automobiles dating from 1898 through to 1997. In fact, this place features the largest collection of Concours d'Elegance winners in the world, and it's easy to see why. And if you are a train buff, you are looked after as well. Well, things just keep getting better and better. We have Laurie, the archivist here at the Nethercutt. Welcome to today's show, Laurie.
Thank you, Fletch.
What an amazing position you have.
I love it here. As an archivist, I get to do all the research and all the restorations and all the other items in the collection. It's fabulous. I love it.
Not a silly question, but day in, day out, it keeps you busy?
Yes, with 260 cars in the collection, you bet it does.
Where do they come from?
All around the world.
Why don't they come to me?
Me too.
Before we go any further, if you're wondering why I'm wearing sunglasses inside, I've got a crook eye at the moment, interfered with by allergies, and the glare is killing me. So that's the reason why for that, Laurie.
We can deal with that.
You have to do what you do, right?
That's right.
Okay, now, here on the carpet, we have a premises across the road as well, right? So how many cars in this section?
We have 120 cars in here.
A lot of 20s, a lot of 30s. It's like as though today's cars, they're boring. The art has gone. I believe the art went 35, 40 years ago.
The style, absolutely. These cars are amazing, and they go from the early 1900s through the teens, 20s, 30s, 40s. There's a few 50s and 60s cars in the collection, but we specialize in the earlier cars.
Laurie, the opulence, the attention to detail that the manufacturers put into these vehicles. Some of these cars were worth $12,000 and $14,000 before 1920 came around. We had cars in the 70s that weren't worth that much money at a lower level. The people that must have bought these cars so long ago, they must just have had incredible empires.
Well, absolutely. You're talking about the Carnegies, the Westinghouses, the Vanderbilts. These are all their cars. I mean, these are all the big industrialists of the day. They had this money, even during the Depression, which is when, especially the 30s cars, that's when they were bought. Although there was a lot of car companies that ended during the Depression, but still a few made it out.
I was told by a dear friend in the United States who's now passed, and a lot of people have admired that episode of Wes Myrick. And Wes said once that they never built any bad cars in the 30s. They were always good cars. And that always surprised me because, as you have just alluded to, Laurie, depression, many people out of work, bad times back then. Hence, I guess, the beginning of why the Second World War came about. But they made incredible vehicles and there was still a market for them.
Well, absolutely, because not everyone lost money in the stock market. A lot of people had money elsewhere or took the money out before the stock market crash. And not to mention Hollywood. A lot of money in Hollywood during the 30s.
These cars here, are they actually owned by Nethercutt? Are they a 99-year lease? How does that work, Laurie?
No, he bought each and every car. Now, there are a handful of cars that are on loan from employees and board members, but 99% of them Mr. Nethercutt bought. It was his hobby. He loved to collect these cars, and his son does too. Jack has continued the same collection and started buying more cars too, except for more of his era, which would be the 50s and 60s.
The fire engine behind us is just incredible. It has been painstakingly restored, you can just tell. What's the story there with that?
Well, it's a 1913 Christies Firetruck. Christie Firetruck was owned by Christie, or built by Christie, in New Jersey. And it was to Somerville, Massachusetts for the fire department there, and it stayed there for many, many years. And we have lots of original photographs of this being used in Somerville, which is wonderful. I mean, it's got quite the history.
There is so much stuff left here in the United States. There can't be too many of these.
No, I think there's only a couple. Luckily enough, there is actually another one still here in LA in Burbank. So there's still a few out there.
Now, this equipment looks so archaic today, but I guess we've got to alter our mindset here and consider back in these times, what is sitting behind us would have been state-of-the-art, cutting-edge technology, and if the fire department had one of these, they would have been ahead of the stations that didn't.
Oh, absolutely, because back in that time period, 1913, most fire departments were still horse-driven vehicles.
This Hudson in front of us here, now, when I walked in, that car really grabbed me, and I think that the movie Cars put the Hudson on the map. Doc Hudson, there's no two ways about that. To see one like that, Laurie, convertible, restored, how it would have been in its day, what a stunning motor car.
Oh, I totally agree. 1952 Hudson Hornet. I mean, you can't get any more iconic than that. You really can't.
So, do you get these cars unrestored? I know you mentioned earlier about going through the restoration process. Now, does that happen in every case?
No, there's a lot of cars that we bought that have been restored when we bought the car. And those cars are meant for display or just to go out on the road. I mean, we do take these cars out. Every one of these is driven. So we take these cars to car shows, car events. We'll take them on tours, drive them around for 4 days on a beautiful tour. So these have many uses, not just showing, but also touring and on display.
My passion for cars began when Nana and Pop bought their new Toyota Crown. It was Nana's, really. She loved that car. We went everywhere in it. My passion now is just the same, even though my cars are a little different. I've still got Nana's car, couldn't part with it. And I reckon if she was here today, she'd be insured with Shannons too.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
In 2019, why not consider a Detroit tour with Fletch? Detroit, the automotive epicenter. It will leave you gobsmacked. Imagine experiencing where automotive history on a grand scale began. Stay in fine accommodation, taking in some of the best museums and private car collections on the planet. Book your 2019 Detroit tour with Fletch. 1300 146 392. How would you like to double your garage space and work on your cars easily? Well, bring in your own hero with a Lift King hoist. Easy to install models in 1, 2 and 4 post styles. Check the very nifty Spider 2500 portable mini scissor lift. Hero hoists are either Oz certified or carry the Euro CE, your guarantee of quality construction and reliability. I regularly stand under my Lift King, so when you need a bit of a lift, why don't you go stand under yours? Hare & Forbes Machinery House has been family owned and operated for over 85 years, and it's easy to see why. Planning on welding? Look at these welding tables and clamps, air compressors and different air tools, sandblasting cabinets, through to spray guns. Everyone is welcome at Machinery House. There are competitive freight rates around Australia, and you can buy online at machineryhouse.com.au. So remember, Hare & Forbes has the range. All right, here we are, building 2 across the street. This is the lower level lorry.
Right, Fletch. This is what we call the lower salon.
The lower salon. And behind us, a 1932 Chrysler. What an amazing car. Now, obviously, you're going to tell us something about this one.
Well, this one actually has a really neat story to tell with Mr. Nethercutt. He actually saw this car when he was a young man and loved the color scheme, and he always envisioned owning this car, but he couldn't find it. So he settled for a red one, and they stripped the car down. It was this color scheme. It was the car he saw originally.
Okay, so what condition was the Chrysler in when you obtained her?
It wasn't bad. It needed a complete restoration. I mean, the paint was off, the upholstery needed to be reupholstered, but all in all, it wasn't in bad condition.
You can see too that the war must have been on with the top-end cars back in the 20s and 30s when it came to the 5-star opulence, because the embellishments, the bright work, the effort that went into the design of these top-end cars, would have been some big rivalry going on.
Right, but you also have to deal with coach builders, because the coach builder is what made the car. That's what made these such special cars and so expensive, is that having a coach builder, you could buy the chassis from Packard and take it to whichever coach builder you wanted. Right. And they had special bodies designed already for you, or you can have one designed completely on your own for you, a one-off car.
And there also would have been coach builders that made the bodies for different brands as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Laurie, what are you doing to me?
Welcome to the Grand Salon. This is an amazing room.
You can only use the word speechless so many times. This would have to go down in the history of classic restos, the most opulent environment I've ever seen classic cars showcased. It is beyond stunning.
Well, this is actually to represent an automobile showroom of the teens' 20s and 30s. Back in the day when you went shopping for your Lincolns, Rolls Royces, and so you would walk into a room just like this. They were in hotels. They had buildings built for them. This is what they looked like during that time period.
Now, the story with where we're standing, was this a warehouse that was bought and decked out?
No, actually, it was built by Mr. Nethercutt for this collection. It wasn't a warehouse that we bought. We built it from the bottom up.
All right, so in this section here, Laurie, what can we expect to see? What are the makes? What are the brands? The era?
Well, the eras are the teens, 20s, 30s, not so much the 40s, but these are luxury cars. Mr. Nethercutt was big on collecting luxury cars. And so you'll have Packards, Pierce Arrows, Mercedes, Duesenbergs, Lincolns, they're all here.
It's the only place you could come to work and you don't need to bring a plate because you eat your lunch off the floor. It's immaculate, isn't it?
Yes, Mr. Nethercutt was very adamant about it being pristine. And even the cars, even the furniture, everything is pristine.
Okay, Laurie, you're going to have to educate me. I'm way out of my depth here. What's the story with this 1930 Rolls Royce?
Well, it's a Phantom II. It's bodied by Brewster. But what makes this car unique is that it was owned by a movie actress, starred in The Silence, and ended up going to the talkies, and her name was Constance Bennett. If you're a real movie person, she starred in all the Topper movies.
The incredible styling of this 1930 Rolls Royce with an almost marine designed chrome framework around the driver. Brilliant. I actually haven't seen that on any other type of vehicle.
Well, it's a Brewster body, which they specialize in very streamlined looks and lines of the car, but also, if you notice on the car, there's a lot of caning paint on it, which is also a Brewster tradition too.
There was no other vehicle really in the world. I mean, back in these times, these cars that are here, this is it. There was no other country in the world that, well, this was the pick of the crop, wasn't it?
Right, especially during that time period.
Okay, we look at the length of this car, at least 20, 21 feet long. Of course, that Rolls-Royce grille, so synonymous with the mark that it just remained for decades, hasn't it?
Oh, and it's one of the few marks and the few hood ornaments that's iconic. Everyone knows the Rolls-Royce, the spirit of ecstasy.
It's interesting too, because just lately I've been talking to Jay Leno a bit, and it was one funny thing that Jay said. He said, Rolls-Royce, he said, they don't need a grille like that. He said, the car doesn't need it. And it's a great point that he raised. It doesn't need it, but they kept it because that was the brand. And as soon as you saw that grille, you knew it was a Rolls.
Right, but that's also what the owners would want to. They would want to make a statement, and that made the statement.
Okay, so do you know anything about the engine and driveline? Anything about the mechanical side?
No, I sure don't. I'm
that's
more the historian.
I know, but that's honesty, and I like that because that's how I started the interview. Please educate me on these cars. My goodness, you might think you know a certain amount about vehicles, but it's a real eye-opener to come into a domain where your knowledge is extremely small. It's so incredibly minute, and there's just so much to learn.
So much, and being that I'm more of a historian than I am a mechanic, no, it's the stories that get me. And this one has a great story. It was, like I said, owned by Constance Bennett, and she would rent the car out to the studios. And the car actually made more money as salary-wise than she did acting. The car would make $250 a day, which was a lot of money back then. But unfortunately, her husband lost the car in a poker game.
Oh, wow, that was a bad decision, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'll say.
Every weekend around Australia, motoring enthusiasts get together to share their passion for cars and bikes. It's a passion that brings us together. All sorts of people, all sorts of cars and bikes, from the classics of today to the classics of tomorrow. At Shannons, we understand enthusiasts, so when it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
Martin's Panel Masters has 3 modern accident repair centres. They service Melbourne's inner, outer east and the fast-growing southeast corridor. Your vehicle will receive the best from state-of-the-art repair equipment finished beautifully from computer-based paint mixing systems, finished in Australian compliant spray booths. Martin's Panel Masters, located at Ferntree Gully and Berwick, also Box Hill Panels. In 2019, why not consider a Detroit tour with Fletch? Detroit, the automotive epicentre. It will leave you gobsmacked. Imagine experiencing where automotive history on a grand scale began. Stay in fine accommodation, taking in some of the best museums and private car collections on the planet. Book your 2019 Detroit tour with Fletch. 1300 146 392. If you have a restoration project, Hare and Forbes has the tools that you need. Shrinker stretchers, dollies, mallets, bead rollers, profile gauges, professional panel restoration kits, and so much more. Now I warn you, enter at your own risk because you will end up buying something. So come along to your Cap City store or browse and buy online at machineryhouse.com.au because Hare and Forbes has the range. Another ornate car here, Laurie. I like American cars. Just personally, I believe that the American cars overall, bang for the buck, have always given a great package. We've got a 1934 Packard here in all its exuberance. What's the story here?
Well, it's one of 5. It's a sport Phaeton, and there were only 5 built to the LeBaron body cars. There are still 4 that exist today. But Mr. Nethercutt saw this car, and a man by the name of Hussey owned it, and he tried to buy it, and he said no. And he finally found one of his own and restored it.
It's amazing. See, sometimes you just have to restore a car. It's interesting. We go down this road of keeping things original. Just recently, once again, had a conversation with Lee Keno from Antiques Roadshow, and we were discussing the principles of keeping something original as opposed to restoring. And there's so many thousands of guys that have gone down that road and they've done a restoration. There's cars out there with different paint colours, non-matching engine numbers, but the cars are incredible. It's also nice to keep them as you find them. But when you've got something like that, you don't have any choice but to go ahead and restore it.
Right, absolutely. And that's what's amazing about this car. And one thing with the colors with Packard is you could have any color you wanted for another $10. So cars were orange, pink, purples. Every color was available back then.
Do you know how many of this particular car was made?
There were 5 built and 4 that still exist.
Do you know where the other one is?
No, I don't.
There's always that one, isn't there? Interesting too, we mentioned the Tucker motor car with 51 being built, or 50 then including the prototype, and they're all accounted for now. So it's isn't that nice to know?
And we happen to have one across the street also in the collection.
Now, if this classic car collection does not inspire you, well, chances are nothing much will. But it is a subtle reminder to make sure that our classic vehicles are insured by the very best. And of course, that's Shannons. And if you have anything to do with a classic bike, classic car or a classic truck club, make sure that it's listed on the Shannons Club for all the world to see. Find out more information when you visit shannons.com.au. So how you doing, Laurie? You having fun?
Oh, I'm great, Fletch. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. A little overwhelmed, I think. This is just amazing. And now the 1928 Yatta France.
Franschini, that's right. It's a all-weather cabriolet. And it was a Castagna body. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. But in any case, this Yatta Franschini was the Rolls-Royce of Italy.
That's amazing. The Italians, I mean, they've broken the mould here because they weren't renowned for building big cars. But this is up there with the size of your Packards, your Duesenbergs, Rolls-Royces. This is a full-size car.
It certainly is. And if you've ever seen the movie Sunset Boulevard, one was prominently displayed in that movie.
It's just amazing. I've got to ask you the story here. Where was this found? This is not they're not the type of cars that you find in barns.
Right. No, it was in a collection. We bought it from a collector, but it was originally imported into the United States in 1928 and was displayed and sold off the New York Salon of 1928.
The detail that they've put in the die-cast in the front of the car, around the grille, it is phenomenal. And as for that, we look inside once again, extremely Art Deco, I guess, being 1928 too. It's really the beginning of that.
Oh, absolutely. Art Deco. It's at the dawning of that. It's kind of at the end of Art Nouveau, which is very curvy. But this is definitely Art Deco.
Do you know how many were built?
At Yatta Franschini, there were quite a few built. Of this model, I think this is the only one left, and there was only a few built because it was such a big car.
Yeah. Absolutely amazing. Also, being the archivist, where you work across the street in building number 1, so to speak, that's an incredible room. I cannot believe the amount of fixtures and full of books and shop manuals and your information. Your database there is incredible.
It is. It's one of the largest automotive private libraries in the country. It's amazing. We have anything from brochures from the very beginning to magazines from 1895, automotive magazines and books.
So where does this sit with an enthusiast restoring a car in the public? Can they contact Nethercutt and get information from you?
Definitely. That's what we're here for. That's what the library is there.
So it's not just for the restoration or preservation of your own vehicles. You're here to help as well. I could guarantee you, I don't think that there would be a car on the planet that there wouldn't be some information over there on.
And that's very true. Although occasionally I am surprised, but most of the time we're good to go.
That is amazing. On that note, Laurie, I'd like to thank you so much for your time today. It's been a big day here at the Nethercutt, and I really appreciate giving up your day to walk around and showing us just some. I mean, it's like Pebble Beach. It's a toe in the ocean. It's just a drop, but at least it gives an idea of the size of the events, the opulence that is there around those events, and certainly same goes for the Nethercutt as well.
Well, Fletch, it's been an honor having you here, and it's been fun showing you around.
Thank you. Good on you, Laurie. Thank you so much again.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Well, what do we say to this? I hope you have really enjoyed this week's special episode of Classic Restos here at the stunning Nethercutt collection near Los Angeles, United States of America. And as I say at the end of every episode, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, until next week, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ClassicRestosTV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Hare and Forbes Machinery House, Pace Farm, Hero Hoists, and Martin's Panel Masters.